Welcome to Guardians of the Data. I'm your host, Balcerzak. Each episode will explore the passions, expertise, and real world experiences of security leaders who are helping the future of data security and governance. Guardians of the Data is made possible by support from Sentra. To learn more about our AI powered data security platform, please visit sentra.io. Let's dive in. Today's guest, I originally connected with years ago preparing for Black Hat, looking to meet folks with similar backgrounds. He's got 2 decades of cybersecurity experience with over 50 certifications and licenses in both security AI from places like Johns Hopkins and the SANS Institute. Currently, the director of data governance and data loss prevention at InComm Payments, which I didn't know this, but has presence in over 30 different countries. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Luis Valenzuela, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here. I'm honored to be in the first episode nonetheless. So thank you for having me.
Very first episode. All right, in Guardians of the Data, we bring in data security leaders from various walks of life to chat and learn from. So, Luis, let's jump in. In your professional opinion, what is the biggest challenge that organizations are facing when it comes to data security?
That's a great question. And I think it's a question that a lot of businesses face, especially when we look at the headlines. Breach here, breach there, ransomware growing, ransomware more expensive, et cetera, et cetera. And one would think ransomware is the biggest challenge. But if you look under the hood, under that main problem that is for every organization, the how you address that big ransomware problem, there are 3 major challenges that kind of help to define the solution for that. And that is what is the data that we need to protect? Because we can protect everything equally because we've got to go out of business. So what is the key critical valuable data and all of the features around it? Who has access to it? Where is it located? How old is it? Things like that. Then the second challenge about that specific set of the crown jewels, the valuable data, is what risks we have. Specifically, do we have to protect it in some special way, or do we accept the risk of having it open the way it is on the other extreme? Do we have any legal exposure, any implications for access, risk, availability, confidentiality, integrity? All of the things around what could go wrong that will cost to our business additional money if we don't do something about it. And the third one that may or may not apply for all businesses is the monetization of data. Like, what can we do with this data that we have within the legal and privacy boundaries to bring additional revenue streams, to maybe enhance our sales pipeline, marketing, relationship with other companies? What can we do with this data to make it more valuable? And if there is a business case, then what are the potential risks that would come from that? Because not only we're going to have additional revenue, which is what we want, but that's going to open a new set of potential risks that we need to address. So those 3 things, I think, address the main challenges for data security for almost any kind of organization in any vertical.
Love it. Completely agree. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of those over the years, just thinking back to some of my first roles in data security. Most leaders, most CISOs, most CIOs, they're really concerned about data leaving, right? You mentioned ransomware, your data being trapped, being ransomed, if you will, being lost, whatever. Data leaking, people sending it out, sharing it appropriately. Obviously, there's privacy concerns, but I've always kind of tried to bring it back, right, and say, okay, let's take a pulse, right? I hear you. Data leaving, data being ransomed, all of that is super bad. We don't want it to happen. But do we even know, right? Do we even know what our data is or where it's at? So, I mean, how have you in your background started to wrap your arms around that? What is the data? Where is the data? What have you done in that space?
Well, when I started in this current role where I am, we started doing a general assessment like in anything else. Maybe because of my background in project management, I see everything as where are we today? Where do we want to be? And how do we get there? What's that gap analysis? What are the different actions we need to take? And in doing so, in learning best practices for data governance and data protection, etc., I quickly realized that a lot of people go towards tools. Oh, we need to buy this tool, we need to install this tool. And that often ends in a variety of weak spots like tool sprawling or a lot of tools that are not optimized, tuned in to do what they do. And we're spending a lot of money in technology that are not doing anything for the company. That's one potential. Another one is that technology doesn't always do what we need it to do because we're just not there. So combining all of those issues, I came to the realization that in creating our roadmap, our strategy, we would not look at only tools, but also governance in the first place, and in defining what is it that we want to do, and do we have the stamp of approval of the executive leadership, and do we have the right processes to make those tools work, right? We don't want to bring a tool and start paying X amount of money per year if we don't have the process to make that actually work. So we started from attacking those three sides: governance, tools, and processes. And from the governance standpoint, we decided, we met with people in different teams. The legal team was a huge partner for us to develop those governance, the data governance standard in our case, and defining what is sensitive data, what is PII, what is PHI, what's the data, the time frame that we need to keep a particular piece of data in our custody. What are our legal requirements, contractual requirements, with each of our key partners, etc. So combining all of that data, we came out with our data governance document that one of the goals that we had was not 100 pages policy, blah, 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 legalese that nobody understands, cares, or reads, but something more practical, something more check here, pictures, diagrams, 1 to 3 steps, things like that. So we made it very actionable. One of the things that we did, for example, was to change the previous data governance standard that had about 90 different types of data with their own data retention. So if it's legal for this state or whatever, is 4 years. But if it's legal from this other state, it's 3 years, things like that. We changed that into just 4 types of data that everybody in the company very easily can remember. Do I delete this? Well, is it one of the 4 types? That's it, right? So we made it very easy to understand, to be actionable. Then we started from that data governance. We created the processes that we needed, and some of them we're still working on. How do we get to that point? And then we started putting tools on top. And because we already had a process and a governance, now it's easier for us to evaluate tools, to create a very fair standard, if you will, when we evaluate tools, to say, okay, this one is better than that one, and so on.
Super smart. There's been a few organizations that I've worked with that, to your first point, right? Tools, right? Hey, we got a problem. Let's go buy a tool. Hey, we got another problem. Let's go buy a tool. We have 5 problems against 5 tools. Hopefully not 5 tools, maybe 1, but whatever. You made a really, really, I think, important point there, which was you started at governance. And I see a lot of folks kind of miss that, right? They get the tool, they start implementing the tool. Inevitably, the business, right? The people making the money squawks. They say, oh my goodness, either they got a block and now they're unhappy, or you started having conversations after implementation and again, they're unhappy, right? They've got a little bit of fear and uncertainty, FUD, if you will, that now you're going to impact business. So let's walk that back to creating the governance, because you said something else I thought was very key in there, which was you didn't create 100-page document that no one was going to read, right? I've seen that too, where people just get crazy and say, we've got 75 different types of data. Here's all the things for the 75. You said you locked that down to 4. Talk to me about how you did that, because that is so, I feel like so 101, if you will, so basic, but everybody misses it. How did you get that agreement?
Yes. So I believe to start, why did we have 80 types? In my predecessor in this role had worked with a consulting company, I believe, and they had developed this document that was a very good, very comprehensive document that perhaps was more applicable to a different type of organization, maybe, or it had a lot of details that might be relevant for a specific type of organization, but not necessarily for us. So I took that document and I started working on, and it was not once; it was revision after revision. It was an agile style type of project. Iterate, iterate. We started looking. Okay, where do we start here? Work with the different groups, compliance, all of the folks who are the experts in PCI, in HIPAA, in the high tech, and all of these either government or frameworks, or the people who work with the contracts and legal. Uh, can we do this? What about that? And we started working in different revisions, and we basically, to be honest with you, as often it does, it comes down to Excel, like Microsoft Excel. I took all of the data types that we had, and I put them in a table, marking, okay, basically taking from the governance document into a spreadsheet each line, okay, minimum, maximum, and a few other data types, like who does this apply to? Is this like a worldwide thing? It is or a Europe thing, a geographic parameter, California thing, or is this in terms of verticals? Does it apply to all companies or health companies? So I created a chart and matrix to figure out then with pivot tables and all of this, what are the common groups that we can divide this in, right? 3 years later, I figure now if I dump that into ChatGPT might give me the ultimate answer, right? But 3 years ago, I didn't have ChatGPT; it was Excel. But that's how I started grouping them, combining them, right? And instead of having 10 different things that are all health related, hey, what's the maximum or the minimum common denominator in this case? Let's say it's HIPAA. All right. If meeting the HIPAA requirement will also help us to meet every other health requirement, let's call this health data. Let's go with what HIPAA said. Let's go with 7 years or whatever is the specification of each. And we decided minimums, maximum. And we always had the legal caveat, except legal hold, business reasons. There are about 3 different things that overall the business users, the Joe in marketing and Mary in financial, they can look at the document, but if they know our most important customer is asking for 3 years more, they can do it because that business priority is given within the framework that we give them to be able to do business in a secure way. So it kind of worked in both ways.
Love that. Love that. I mean, I've taken similar approaches in my past, and I'll tell you, probably the most difficult hurdle that I've had to look to overcome, and I'm sure you've had to, is education, right? Training the groups, the stakeholders to say the who, what, where, when, why, how, right? Yeah, obviously it's back to the policy, so that's the what, the how, all that. How did you how did you accomplish that? The training of the business and the users and the inevitable Q&A that comes out of that?
Well, we started, first of all, we created the foundation with the support and the opinion of all of the experts in the different areas, right? So, for example, in some of the areas that are less likely to work with the security team, like business operations, let's say, I had to find, okay, who's the leader in business operations who can tell me why we have a data retention for 10 years here? Who said that? Like, why do we have that? First, I had to find out who's the person. Start with the vice president, the CFO, or the COO. And who do I talk about this? And find the right contact, set up the call, and explain what I'm doing, and get his input. And sometimes get to, I don't know where that came from. And in many cases, what we had in our data governance, the original one, nobody knew why. And literally nobody from the people that I asked, I don't know. Okay, can we legal? Can we delete? Yeah, everybody agrees. Gone, right? So that was the first. I say that as a foundation because now that I have the data governance created and I have a set of things we want to meet, I want to train the organization on that. And the first question that I want to be able to answer is the why. Like, why? Right? Well, now I'm ready to say because we already have the consensus of all of the authorities in this particular topic, including your boss at 3 levels high, that this is the best way to go. And we're making it easier for you because we're switching from this previous version that was more complicated. Do you want to learn a whole page or just one line? Oh, this sounds good. So we started communicating with each of the verticals within the company with a SharePoint page. We just created a SharePoint page for our team where we have all of everything that we do, and some sections is divided by the areas of work. In the data governance area, we have an explanation of data governance, and we have certain graphics that, for instance, what type of data, how do you label a document restricted or confidential, or what is what. So we have a kind of a workflow where anybody can just click, go and say, okay, it's not this one, it's that, yes, it's this one, okay, confidential, boom. That's the what I put. So we started sending that, make socializing all of that information with the different business units, with targeted emails, with targeted calls for the different teams, where we would call kind of a small town hall, if you will. So let's say marketing, and we set up the call for marketing. We invite them all. Not everybody will show up, but we'll record the call so they can go to our SharePoint and see the recording later if they need to. And in these 20 minutes, we're telling them, okay, marketing, we have a new system. From now on, anything that you create has to have a sensitivity label, and you need to put it. And this is how you define it. This is where you get information. It will take you 3 seconds. That's all. And this is all of the tools you need to be able to make the right decision. So with that kind of training, the marketing people don't have to worry about, but what is health data? Because they don't deal with health data. They all mostly deal with, is this internal or is this public? So we concentrated in that code to their specific needs. What are the challenges that they would face? With the people who will healthcare, we targeted to their thing. So with each group, we were able to tell them how we're going to do this particular thing, and then deploy to the entire company, first in monitoring mode, then in blog mode, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of the same process for everything. And that helped me to create the relationship with the leaders in each vertical, to have a place where I don't have to rewrite the same email or response in the chat over and over. I just send them to this link, and that link tells them everything that everybody in that position usually needs to know. And we give options for comments, so we change that. That's why I like the SharePoint side, because I can edit it on the fly, or I can tell somebody in my team, adding this page that includes X, Y, and Z, or AI. Oh, what about AI? We have a whole new set of documents for AI, how to communicate, how to use Gen AI, et cetera, et cetera. So we make it very easy, practical to comply with what we are asking the organization, the users, to do, to partner up with us to make things more secure and reduce risk.
That's amazing. I mean, I heard you say something, again, I think really key, and also something that I think goes against a lot of the personality of a lot of security folks, which was collaboration, right? I kept hearing collaboration. I kept hearing meetings. I kept hearing, kind of developing that trust in all your statements there. Super crucial, right? Like a lot of folks are scared about those security folks. I remember my first job. I worked for a defense contractor, Fortune 500, and security was brand new, right? When I joined, security was firewalls and passwords, and maybe some antivirus, obviously. And then we had won a defense contract, and the DoD said, "Congratulations, now do security." And I make all that. I give you that background to say, like, they actually had one of those stock tickers in the IT room. That kind of you put words up and it scrolls across the screen. And it was just two of us, myself and my boss, and they had Agent Ward, right? They called me Agent Ward. It was a whole Men in Black type of stuff, right? Like super scary. You don't want to talk to Ward. He's going to tell you no. He's going to say, stop doing that. What I'm hearing you say, to be successful in data security, you've had to shed that Men in Black mantra, right? You're not Big Brother. You're not super scary. You're Lewis, right? Talk to me, collaborate with me, partner with me. Let's do the right things. I'm curious though. InComm Payments, big company, what you said, over 30 different countries you guys are in. What complexity did that add to what you just told us, to the partnering, the liaising, building all that? Like, did it add a lot of complexity, or how did you get through some of that red tape?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of complexity because of the different geographical places from a business development sales standpoint. Number two, geographically, each place has a different kind of product because we have a huge number of different specific products. Not all products are sold in every geography, right? Or by the same team. Then we have acquisitions, companies that have been brought in that become a new set of products that start getting mixed with others. And so you add product complexity, geographical complexity, and then you add the fact that, in a sense, we are a very technology-driven, modern-driven company who happens to be 30 years old. So we have a lot of new stuff, very trendy in terms of the technology that we use, but we also have repositories that are 20 years old, right? So all of that combined, it breaks the different logical groups into very unique groups. But to answer your question, um, one of the approaches that I have taken is working with, if you think about the organigram, we have the leadership, at the first level, the CEO, you have the second, the CFO, the COO, presidents of business units. Then you have the third layer that can be VPs or mutualist VPs, where you have the rest of the people falling under. Those people, in my opinion, are both close enough to the operation that we can have a conversation and they can understand what I'm talking about without me holding a huge paycheck in a 30 minutes call, if you were. And they know what the operation is. They understand the importance of security and what we do security. So I chose to start working with that layer of leaders across the company. And it has shown more or less successful because they have, again, they know, they don't know exactly what I'm talking about necessarily when I say we need to do X thing for the security control at the server. They don't know the server name, but they know what business unit it belongs to under their hierarchy, so they can direct me to Joe. Okay, he's the one you want to talk to, and they have the authority to tell Joe, please work with Luis because we need to solve that. That's an important enterprise problem. Joe has no idea what I'm talking about, but the VP I'm talking to, he knows that issue came up in the last enterprise risk management meeting. So it's a good combination, somebody I can talk to. So I connect with them often. I have a variety of activities to stay in touch with them, to see what they're doing, to offer my help, to ask questions, and even for something totally not connected with data protection necessarily, for Cybersecurity Awareness Month in October, which I help to do some of those activities as well. Some of those activities I target to working with them and their teams, right? Why? Well, not only because it's fun and the gamification and, hey, my team is better than your team, which is good and gives good results, because I've been working with this team of leaders for a while and I want to create more touch points, because touch points strengthen the relationship. A relationship is strengthened usually by touch points, more often, better. Trust, which I've been building with them, because when I reach out and say to them, we're going to do this by this day, they know I do it. Or because we have that connection, sometimes they contact me, hey, can you help me with this? I don't have a problem. I need CrowdStrike or something that is not necessarily in my lane, but it's one of my peers. I said, don't worry, I'll take care of that. I help them, right? So they are learning that they can trust me. If they something, they just send me a chat, hey, can you help me with this? And I help them. So that trust and the touch point creates the type of relationship that now make us more connected to make work, and helps me to fulfill my role, my direct responsibilities, helps them to fulfill the role in a secure way, and helps the larger security team to do what we need to do, reducing that typical friction that we call with the business. Here we're just all working together.
Love that. I mean, that's definitely the leadership mentality there, right? Like help out when it's not even necessarily your problem, your team, your responsibility. That's fantastic. So we talked a lot about going back to the data security and the issues. We talked a lot about understanding what the data is. We talked a lot about collaboration and training and getting information out there. I'm really curious. How have you either accomplished or started to accomplish understanding where that data is at? Just thinking back in my own career again, that first job, everything was on-prem. It was super simple, right? Air quotes. Like it was within a data center somewhere, right? It's going to be in a server in a rack. I can go find it. The proliferation of cloud and SaaS over the last 20 years has been absolutely insane, right? Like I have not talked to a company that doesn't have multi-cloud at this point. Usually I talk, oh yeah, we've got some AWS, we got some GCP, we got some Azure, right? They have all the flavors. So how have you started to really kind of wrap your arms around that problem?
Similar to what we were discussing at the beginning, the governance process tools combination, where if anyone has been working with the DSPMs, data security, procedure management tools, uh, we all know they're not 100% accurate. Sometimes they're not 80%, sometimes not even 50%, depending on what type of data in what environment and what tool. Not necessarily because they're bad, but because the technology is not there, or because our organizations and our documents and our data is so complex in many layers that it's hard to, even if you have an accurate tool, it's hard to get to the right information in the right way. So the approach that we have taken is to combine the best of the tool with the best of the governance and the best of the process, which in simple terms at this point means that if I can connect a tool to a repository, an easy repository of data, so let's say my databases, to take an easy example, structured data is relatively simpler to do scanning, to do identification, to do tagging. The accuracy is usually better, great. Not as much if you're scanning OneDrive, right? And where unstructured data is more unique in the patterns, because there are no patterns usually. It's more complicated. You put the tool, you do the tuning, the validation, maybe with data owners, depending on the organization. If it's a big organization with all data, that data ownership is more complex because the people who had created these documents are no longer in the company, and the manager of that former employee was merged in a reorg 3 years ago to another department. So now who's the owner? The old owner, or today gets complicated. We use the tools, but also we're doing in parallel, we use the processes, which is back to my team of leaders for each vertical. Guys, from the data governance standard, parentheses, we created it that way. We say there, if we don't know who's the data owner, by default, the layer 2 vice president is the owner, because they have both the authority to make decisions, the authority to assess a risk and accept it or reject it, and they have enough political capital at stake, right? They really care about the data. If you ask a supervisor, in as much as he might be very nice and very smart, he might say, sure, we accept the risk, right? Well, if we're talking about quantification of risk, just not to go too far, but open a parenthesis, if I tell a supervisor, we have between 20 and 80% probabilities of losing $50 million if we leave this open. Do you take the chance? And he says, yes. We are asking a $100,000 a year employee to accept a $50 million risk. That has no sense. That holds no water in any court. That's not due diligence, right? On the other hand, if I ask a vice president that owns a business unit that is worth, I don't know, $100 million in business revenue, and I ask this leader, hey, do we spend $100,000 on this tool, or do you want to take the risk and lose 20 million? And he says, we take the risk. He has the authority, the knowledge, and the political capital to defend and justify that type of need. So closing the parentheses and back to the data governance, we work with those leaders and we work with them. Okay, we have this type of risk. We are going to do this kind of operation, whatever is the topic that we are working on. And again, we ask them, specific example, do you in any of your business units, any of your leaders have any data in a SaaS application? He may not know. Likely will say, yeah, I think Joe uses Salesforce. That's it. But he can send an email to his reports and say, hey, I need everybody who has, let me know if you use any SaaS applications. By the way, this is SaaS application. And he sends a link that I created in my SharePoint where I explain exactly what is and what is not a SaaS application. Because not everybody knows. In fact, not even in cybersecurity, we all agree on what is SaaS application. Right? So I
True,
created a
true.
working definition for our company. This is what SaaS application means. He sends it, gets it back. Now I get the leaders for those sub business units who say, oh, yes, I use X, I use Y, I use Z, and I start building that manual list of SaaS applications. And now I know who to ask. Do you have any sensitive data? And if they say yes, then I go to the next step. Do we have encryption? Do we have SSO? All of those things. Now, there are tools that can help me do that, put together that list in one dashboard. That's great. If you have the funding, if you have the means to do that, fantastic. If you don't, you have to start somewhere. There's another parallel process that we are exploring that I think it would be good is I identify one of the most mature processes within our security team is the business resilience team. They have very good inventory of the business units, revenues. How do we do to recover them? And because they have a good business process, that means they have a good inventory of business units, which means all we need to do is to add to their questionnaire 2 more questions. Do you have a SaaS application according to this definition? Do you have sensitive data in that application? What sensitive data? Look at this link. Boom. Right? So now I can, and we're working on that right now. I can use their process, their yearly process where they gather all the data from all of the businesses for business resilience. They can help me build my database of SaaS applications. So after a year, I have potentially 3 lists: the one from business resilience and the answers from those business unit. I have the emails, very manual, from the different leaders that ask their people. And maybe I have some dashboard from some tool that gave me some data, and I can cross-reference which one is Marac, what am I missing, where do we start. Now I have a list of 50 SaaS apps that appear to have sensitive data. What do? Do I connect an SSPM tool to scan? Or do I not scan? We just, hey, the business owner told me we have PII. What do I need to scan? Let's go to second phase. Do we need to protect it, et cetera, et cetera? But for all of that, if you notice, 80% was process and people relationships. Only 30% is API, key, enter, load. That's that. I think the emphasis in process, the more I work in cybersecurity, the more I realize that's what we need to work more on.
I love that, and that's a typical refrain that I give to other leaders too. Like again, I think, and I was there too. I came up through the ranks, being hands-on, super technical engineering. I had to really train myself to not assign a technical solution to every single problem, right? Hey, Ward, we need this thing. All right, boom, we're going to go deploy something. Hey, Ward, we need this thing. Okay, boom, I'm going to build that thing. Instead, taking a step back and saying, okay, here's the problem. Do we have the people and process items in place? And people can be staff members, obviously. Everybody's short staffed these days, I think, but it's not even that. It goes back to the relationships, because if you don't have those relationships, you're sunk, especially in data security. I mean, what are we doing? We're securing the business data, and if we can't speak well to those business leaders, we can't do our jobs, and certainly they can't do their jobs securely either at that point. That's awesome. I was really happy to hear that over and over, the whole governance and relationships portion of it. Um, this has been great, man. I think we've learned a lot from you on data security, what you've done. Kind of moving into kind of the second part of our show here. Would love to learn more about you, right? Where did you start? What did you do? How did you get into cybersecurity? Did you know you were going to be a cybersecurity leader when you started this journey?
Um, I did not. The way I tell my story usually is that for the first part of my life, I didn't grow up in the United States. I grew up in a third world country. So unlike most people in this culture, I didn't go to high school and then and I'm going to college and then my first job with PwC and start growing. But the first 25 years of my life was about survival. It was like find a job in a 20 or 30 percent unemployment rate environment. So when I came to the United States, looking for a job in the airline industry or hotels, because that's what I had been doing in Colombia. That's how I got to survive and kind of make it. I was working in a hotel, and one day I had a situation where I was almost responsible for half of the operation because half of the people didn't show up. So I was managing keep the mates. I was managing the breakfast. I was managing this until the boss would show up. And one customer saw me, and she gave me a business card, and she said, "I want you to work for us." I had no idea who this lady is and why would she want me, but okay. So I called the guy, said I'm an interview, and can you work for this match? I'm like, yeah, okay, you're hired, and they hire me. It's like somebody had said from above, hire him for whatever, no matter what kind of situation, and it was a lot, an entry level position. It was a help desk position. But what I kind of learned from that beginning is that what she saw now, years later as a hiring manager, what she saw was somebody that was willing to do what it needed to be done and take the chance even if he was not ready. I had no, I mean, I knew some, but I didn't know much about housekeeping in a hotel. But I had to make a decision because I had 3 housekeepers, no housekeeping manager, and I'm missing 3 more. How do I tell these 3 ladies to take care of? How would I do this? What are the rooms? Make a decision quickly with what I have. And so that's what got me started in some sort of IT. And over the years, I started moving here and there, progressing. 10 years later, I'm doing program management for a satellite communications government contractor. No cybersecurity yet, more IT, wide area network, LAN, creating systems for the 3-letter agencies and special forces groups. Until they say we need you to have like a formal security program, so you can have all of the formal documents and we can continue doing contracts. And I was told, stand up a security program based on NIST 800, 853. I'm like, based on what? Okay, so we need to do some research, find out gap analysis. This is where we are, small business government contractor who happens to have nice contracts here because we deliver well. This is what we want to be, government contractor with a stood up security program. Gap analysis, we need to create policies, procedures, documents, hire people, create verticals, all of that. And I was given all of that to take care of. A year or so later, we did it. We got all of the certifications, clearances, all of that. got the contract. The company ended up being sold or bought because of that. So that's a great story. But I had no idea at that point of Black Hat and RSA and DEF CON. I had just built a security program based on what I was learning, training, and applying, learning, training, and applying. And I was basically a CISO at that point because I stood up the program and was leading the entire thing without knowing all of these things. So it wasn't until I started getting more active into learning, certifications, PMP, then Security Plus, where I started learning about the cybersecurity world, and I started learning more the technical stuff, getting the ethical hacker course and all of these different things, learning all kinds of technical things. And that's how I ended up where I am here. So to go back, uh, would I do something different, or what would I tell somebody trying to get in? I don't know, because if I had done something different, I don't know if it would have worked out the way it worked out for me. Maybe not. And as sometimes I tell people, even the things that are not so positive in my life, especially in the early years in my life, I don't know if I hadn't gone through those difficult situations, I don't know if I would have the personality, the resiliency, the drive, the grit that I have today. Because much of what I have been able to accomplish is not because I'm super smart, because I'm just average IQ. One thing I will humbly accept is that I create plans and I stick to it until we deliver. And that comes, or maybe that wouldn't have come as part of my personality if I had not had to fight for survival when I was 15 or 13 or 12, right? So I mentor a lot of people today, some of them trying to get in cybersecurity, so some of them already in cybersecurity. And usually what I tell them, and I think would address kind of your question, is that in life there are things that are under your control and there are things that are outside of your control. I think it was Stephen Covey who said, "You concentrate on what is in your control and be the best at what you do. Provide value, learn, apply, give it all. If it's under your control and it ends up paying off and bearing some fruits, great, you did it. That's how it's supposed to work. You sow here, you planted, you grew, now you collect the reward. Fantastic. If it doesn't work out, however, you don't have the regret of if I had done better. Because a life without regrets is so much fulfilling than when you like, yeah, I didn't try. Maybe if I had tried, maybe some things didn't work for me, but one thing I can tell you, I tried my hardest every step of the way. So that's what I tell people who are either trying to get in. Hey, it's difficult right now. The market is hard. Maybe you won't be able to get in cybersecurity in the next 3 years. Maybe never. But I'll tell you what, if you work hard where you are and you find your way in, maybe 10 years later, you will look back and say, cybersecurity was not for me. This new thing is what was for me. We will never know, but doing your best job, giving it your all, I think is how you get the best potential possible opportunities.
I love that. I mean, that's grit right there, right? You definitely had. I don't want to call it interesting, coming up in Colombia, but we'll just call it that for the show, right? It was interesting. You had a lot of difficulty. Um, you came to the U.S. and you just put your head down and grinded. Everything I heard, that's what it was. You put your head down and grinded. You recognized, if I don't, who else, right? You just talked about the hospitality there, the hotel. Like, it was you and nobody else. You looked around, and who else was going to do it?
Mhm.
And you accepted that. Said, "Well, I guess it's me. Here we go." Um, I'll share. It's kind of the same mentality I have with things. I kind of get in my own head when I'm about to do something, right? I try to over prepare. I try to be ready, but I finally got to the point in my own career where, I'll still do that, right? I'll still prep, I'll still grind, but then I'll finally get to this mental state where it's like, I either have it or I don't. right? I'm either going to succeed or I'm not. And I got to be okay with that. Because what else am I going to do? Am I going to do analysis paralysis and not move forward? Or am I just going to trudge forward anyways? And again, going back to your story, I heard a lot of that as well, right? You just put your head down, you kept going. I'm going to guess you probably hit a few brick walls, right? You probably hit a few stops. But based on your very impressive career, it sounds like you probably pushed through those walls, or you made your own doorway through that wall and kind of went around it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Sometimes things work out better depending on your how your life is formed around morals and beliefs. You know, some people might say God, some people say positive energy, uh, destiny, luck, however you want to call it. I think one thing is indisputable in any of those environments is that by and large, you get what you work for. Not always, because there are things that you don't get and you work for. That's fine, but that's life. Again, what's in your control, what is not. Uh, for people who are trying to get in cybersecurity or trying to grow in cybersecurity, yes, right now it's hard, but hey, the market might change in a year, 2 years. I'm hopeful the market will start changing very soon. And now all of that hard work you have put on, somebody will realize this person has something to offer to my team. Let's bring him in or bring her in. It's likely so. But if you haven't been working, creating that, as I mentioned earlier, that trust that you can get things done, if I haven't been demonstrated that I can take care of this kind of organization or this kind of challenge, it will be harder for somebody to look at me as a potential candidate and say, yes, I think we can trust you with this new thing. New for you, but you have demonstrated doing okay with new things, right? So that's what I would say to people who are struggling, which is hard. I'm a father. Like, no job, that's hard, right? But I would tell them, if you have a job, do your best in that job. Your current job's performance is your best preparation, your best component for your resume for the next job.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Well, this has been really great, Luis. So, if folks want to connect with you, right? I hear that you mentor, you're obviously a leader. If folks want to connect with you and follow you, what's the best way?
LinkedIn is probably the best way. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, really appreciate this. I think it's been a great episode. Thank you for joining for the very first episode of Guardians of the Data, Luis.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Awesome. And I'd like to thank everybody else. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming and listening or watching, if you're watching the webcast, to the very first episode of Guardians of the Data. I hope that you learned something, certainly from Luis. If you have, if you want to hear more, please follow, please listen, please tell others. So again, Luis, thank you for joining. And everyone else out there, we'll catch you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Guardians of the Data. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes and more, visit guardiansofthedata.show. Guardians of the Data is made possible by support from Sentra. To see how we help organizations discover and classify all of their data accurately and automatically while quickly achieving petabyte scale data protection without the fuss, please visit Sentra.io. Catch you next time.